Breakdown of the 10th step of Alcoholics Anonymous, inventory. We continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we admitted it immediately. We have tried to follow the previous 9 steps, but upon reaching the 10th step, questions arise. Will we be able to maintain emotional balance in our daily lives, whatever the circumstances? Will we be able to maintain sobriety even when things don't go our way? What is the difference between abstaining and being sober? This happens because there are adversities in our daily lives that hinder the sobriety we've come to find within the AA group. For many of us, the discipline of constantly examining our strengths and weaknesses is often tedious and something we don't want to settle into. However, those who have experienced tremendous spiritual and personal growth have had to rely on this kind of work, since many of us have grown through critically examining our flaws and virtues. We all know about drunkenness caused by alcohol, which often damages families due to the alcoholic's disreputable behavior or poor judgment. But there is another type of drunkenness that doesn't involve consuming any kind of drink or drug, dry drunkenness. This is caused by an excess of negative emotions in our lives, such as jealousy, hatred, pity, resentment, guilt, remorse, and others. These kinds of dry drunkenness occur because there is no peace in our present. We will have to recognize that the mistakes we make today we will admit instantly in order to begin working on the problem. We might initially think that all the inventories we do will always seem the same, but this is not true, since the problems we have today will not be the same as those 5 years later. They are not the same problems we had 10 years ago that we face today. That is, the time factor is what makes the inventories we constantly do different. There are different types of inventory. For example, the morning inventory in which we reflect and meditate on what we expect from ourselves to improve that day. There is the night inventory before going to sleep, which serves to analyze our day, what we did well and what we still need to correct. Another is the one taken a few hours into our day, which is very useful for not making impulsive decisions. Those of us who are patients are used to having this procedure at least twice a year. We examine our lives to find out what we need to continue correcting in our personality. Some even like to do this analysis away from the city, taking 2 or 3 days to take stock calmly and peacefully. Don't these customs seem as boring as they are tedious? Do we AA members really have to spend most of the day gloomily reviewing our sins and oversights? Actually, no. It's not a burdensome practice. At some point, it may seem that way because we've never been accustomed to analyzing our successes and mistakes. We've always postponed many aspects of our lives, including self-reflection. However, over time, this practice becomes a habit in our daily lives because the hours we invest in this work cannot be compensated or bought with the tranquility and peace that practicing this step will bring us. Often, when people make us angry or upset, we justify ourselves by saying that they are the ones who did wrong, not us. But justified anger is a luxury we cannot afford as sufferers, since it is pure poison for our soul and can be very dangerous for our sobriety. In fact, many veteran alcoholics in AA have relapsed because of this. These bouts of drunkenness caused by justified resentment have ruined entire days, months, and even years of our lives. That's why it's necessary to get rid of these unhealthy emotions. By taking stock, we'll immediately realize where we've continued acting the same way This type of self-examination can soothe emotional problems in the moment, allowing us to start making better decisions in our lives. Quick self-examinations help us cope with the daily ups and downs of our lives. When we begin to analyze our situation and identify the responsibility or blame we have created, we must be willing to apologize to those we continue to harm. We must remember not to be discouraged by falling back into old patterns of behavior, as it hasn't been easy for many of us to develop the discipline to change our judgments and attitudes. Through this process, we are not seeking perfection, but progress. Spiritual. We must avoid falling into sterile and useless arguments, since we addicts, alcoholics, and emotionally ill people are those who, in arguments, deeply wound others with their words. This can ruin relationships with family members, partners, or friends, whether it lasts just one day, months, or years. We can be extremely angry with the person or completely dismissive with cold indifference. The result will always be the same. We will experience these emotional outbursts. Pride and revenge are the driving forces behind these situations for individuals who begin to experience these kinds of problems. But this isn't the only danger. What happens when a recovering alcoholic or addict begins to achieve material success? We become disdainful of others because material success has made us arrogant, and we trample on them, realizing that they would return the same attitudes to us now that we were at rock bottom. To a certain extent, outraged and angered us towards the people who turned their backs on us. But isn't it true that we encouraged these attitudes that people took towards us? Now that we're on the 10th step, we've surely gained the trust of many of our friends and family, or even achieved a better financial position than before. We have arrived. Therefore, we must be constantly vigilant in our lives, since everything we have obtained has been only by the grace of God and only through Him, because starting to think again with pride and believing that it was our own strength can lead us to bankruptcy again. Finally, we will realize that people, just like us, are emotionally ill. Understanding this allows us to develop the tolerance and honesty to accept the mistakes of others as well as our own. We are all human beings and can fail again, even with the knowledge and years we have in AA. We must be vigilant about our sobriety. We must not rest on our laurels. We were indifferent to those who didn't interest us, even if they were our siblings, parents, or partners. We always pushed people aside and became absorbed in pointing out their most glaring flaws. We have to stop being demanding of people or trying to impose our desires on others, because this attitude only causes outright rejection and contempt. There is discomfort on their part and on ours as well. However, this step provides the solution, immediately admitting to ourselves if we have made a mistake again. Something that will always help us detect if we are causing harm is, are we treating people as we would like to be treated? This question will help us visualize our own attitudes toward others. When night falls, it's a good time to meditate and reflect on what we have done well and poorly in our daily lives, since we shouldn't underestimate the good things we may have done, as these are also important for each of us. Remember that both good and bad things are part of the inventory of the 10th step. That's why I said that the cornerstone of growth is pain. The experience of thousands of alcoholics has proven firsthand that this statement holds a lot of truth. Since to stop drinking or using drugs, we had to hit rock bottom in order to understand what this terrible disease is. In the negative aspects of our inventory, we must identify what our negative aspects are. Thoughts and attitudes, that is, when we have states of jealousy, anger, resentment, frustration, anxiety, etc., we have said things that we later regret saying because we were under the control of the emotion. When we realize this, we have to start working on this in order to have serenity in those moments where negative emotions exist and take things calmly so as not to continue causing harm. But on several occasions, self-justification for our bad attitudes and thoughts toward others will emerge, and that is where we will have to redouble our efforts and approach our godfather or godmother with any doubts we may have in order to have a better discernment of the situations in which we are entangled. Here are some examples of this type of attitude. We have constructively criticized someone because they deserved and needed it, but our real motive was to win a pointless argument. Or if the person in question wasn't present, we believed we were helping others understand them, when in reality our motive was to belittle them so we could feel superior. Sometimes we hurt our loved ones because they need someone to teach them a lesson, when in fact we want to punish them. Sometimes, feeling depressed, we complain about how badly we are suffering, when in reality we want people to focus their attention on us and express their sympathy. This strange peculiarity of the mind and emotions, this perverse desire to hide a bad motive beneath a good one, is seen in all human affairs of every kind. This kind of subtle and insidious hypocrisy can be the hidden motive behind the most insignificant action or thought. Learning day by day to identify, recognize, and correct these flaws is the essence of character development and a good life. Sincere remorse for the harm we have caused, genuine gratitude for the blessings we have received, and a willingness to try to do better in the future will be the lasting assets we seek. After taking a 10th step of this kind, we thank God for the opportunity He gave us to discern good from evil, to realize where we stand and where we are headed. That is why we in AA can have a clear conscience and sleep soundly, knowing that we have the opportunity to continue working on and correcting the things that are still wrong. Thank you for joining us on this spiritual journey toward recovery. If you have found value in our content and would like to continue exploring topics related to Alcoholics Anonymous and personal transformation, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications to receive alerts for our new videos. Together, we can build a community of support and hope. Until next time, and take care.